Hello again, everybody. So we are back today for another career and spirituality conversation. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie Pone, and I support spiritual seekers having a career experience to reconcile what they do for a living with who they are as a soul. And for this mission today, I have my beautiful friend Liz Svensson here with me. Hi, Liz. How are you today?
Hi, great. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And so before we launch into your journey and your perspectives on all the good stuff we like to talk about here, let's just do a 1 minute, 2 minute grounding like we got into the habit of doing if my voice gets on board. So let's do this. So for everyone else, just only if you're in a position to do so, just close your eyes. And just for a moment, let's just appreciate our place in the world, our place in the room that we're in the space that we're in, feeling the weight of our body, the weight of our feet on the earth. Taking a moment to connect with the earth, to ground ourselves, to say, hey, I'm here. Thank you for supporting me. And then after acknowledging our connection to earth, let's move our attention back into our chest. And this time connect with our hearts. So maybe you can feel your heart in your chest. Maybe you can hear it beating. Maybe you want to put a hand over it in order to connect with it. And then you can imagine as if your breath is flowing in and out directly through it, directly through the heart. And from this place for about a minute, about 5 breaths, let's just breathe a little deeper and slower than we usually do. Okay, and so whenever you feel ready, take your time and bring yourself back in here and now and open your eyes. And ta-da! Hello again. How are you?
Great. Thank you for that. That was lovely.
Thank you for being here, Liz. So, Liz, you've been a friend, a dear friend for so many, many years. And for people who are listening, you are a systematic kinesiologist at heart. You know, I've known you doing this. You've been helping me, you know, with this methodology for a very long time. But you're passionate about people and passionate about health, but health in a very particular way, not just feeling good in the body, but having all parts of us feeling good. So health in a wholehearted way, and that's actually the name of your company, Wholehearted Health. So I know we're going to talk about, you know, about this as well. So thank you so much for spending time with us. And without further ado, I'm just gonna put you on the spot with the spiritual part. So I would like to know first, yeah, I'm curious about what's your relationship to spirituality or with spirituality, or what it means to you in whatever way you want to talk about it.
Okay, well, I can give you I can give you a long answer, or I can give you a short answer.
You give me the answer that you want.
Yes, well, so spirituality and I go back a long time. As a kid, I was very I was very curious about God. I had, I tried different avenues to kind of reestablish my own connection with God, if you like. So yeah, whatever about my childhood, my experience with God was really that he that later became she, and then it was like, okay, fine, just God, or the universe. But I felt a lot of things towards God in terms of abandonment, anger, disappointment. I turned my back to everything spiritually in my teenage years, my kind of mid to late teenage years. Turned totally to science, was looking for my answer there, until I kind of came full circle back and realized that, oh, you know what? I don't need all the churches, all this kind of crap. I can find God within, and as within, so without. I can find God in nature, all around me. And so around the time when I started kind of getting into kinesiology, which was because of my own health issues, I was looking for something that would work. I came across kind of spirituality through energy work. And it was something that I was kind of open to. I was like open to it in a way that I'm going to prove it wrong. I'm going to prove that it doesn't work, kind of thing. And I went to I remember this really well. I went to this gathering in Dublin. A dear friend of mine was having these Buddha nights, or Buddha bag evenings.
Yeah, the Buddha bag. Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. And there was a woman there who was doing some energy reading, channeling, whatever. And she started reading the energy in the room. And she's like, oh, everything she was describing, I could feel in my body very physically. I was like, this, And then she's like, is there someone who wants to say something? I was like, no, okay. And I was like, I could feel it. I could feel it coming out of my throat. And I was like, no. And then I was like, fine. And I was like, and I was really annoyed. I was just like, well, fine, there's this thing happening. And she's like, yeah, I can feel it, blah, blah, blah. And she continued describing exactly what I was feeling. And it was such an experience for me that I couldn't ignore it. So after that, no matter how much I wanted to go into my logic and explain it away, my body was like, no, we had an experience. You can't turn your back on this. So I opened up, like I allowed my curiosity to kind of show the way. And and now, this is connecting through breath and meditation and movement is huge for me.
Yeah, it's part of your life. I mean, it's not a separate part. It's like totally, how you live your life is with that.
Exactly.
In that way, through your body. Yeah, awesome. And it's so we got that little glimpse of your experience in Dublin. So would you mind expanding now on what your journey has been professionally? Where did you start? And how did that unfold up until now, what you're doing now? And how your spiritual experiences have intertwined with it?
Yes. So I was always fascinated by people and our human experience. Yeah. So my natural kind of yeah, my natural way kind of went through psychology. And I couldn't get in Sweden because you had to, I wanted to go straight from high school into university. And in Sweden you have to, because I'm Swedish, so you have to have some experience, some work life experience, which at that stage I obviously couldn't understand. I was like, that's ridiculous, you know. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good to have a little bit of experience if you want to be working with people in this manner or kind of try to understand people. So anyway, so I wasn't planning on staying in Sweden, so I left. And a few years later, I ended up doing a psychology degree in London at Middlesex University. And yeah, again, it was not what I expected. It did not have the answers I was looking for. It was pretty dry and pretty academic in the sense of like, it just felt a little bit behind in what I was really looking for.
Yeah, but what type of what questions were you asking? Like, what type of answers were you expecting?
Well, I mean, I don't know what kind of answers but it was like there was, it was interesting to learn how the mind works, which I guess what psychology was about. And at that stage, I didn't realize, but what I was looking for was a more soul connected approach. You know, so I still have, I mean, I still value the stuff that I learned. I can still use that, and it's really good for understanding how we work mentally. And yet there was a component that was missing.
I guess at that stage of your life, you couldn't have any clue of what you were looking for.
No,
it's probably like, yeah, there's something missing, but
let me go party and see if I can find it there. That was kind of what I did.
Yeah, sure.
Amongst other things. Yeah, but it was just, yeah, I was definitely looking.
There. Yeah.
I was definitely searching, and there was stuff in me as well, you know, that even from the psychological point of view, you know, if you're dealing with trauma, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, like abuse or like really heavy trauma, it just be like, you know, trauma on all levels, if you like. And that is kind of sitting in your body and in your system, and your, you know, I couldn't make sense of it, and I was trying to make sense of it through the psychology, and it's all mental. It's all mental. It wasn't connecting with the body, it wasn't connecting with our spirit, it wasn't connecting all the parts that I needed to connect in order to feel whole, you know, and in order to get my answers.
Okay, so at the time, so you had the need, and you knocked on the first door that was there, and it happened to be the mental one.
Yes.
So how did you move on to the next? What were your triggers to hear the door?
So after university, I was like, I found myself in a completely new world. I was like, oh, hold on, there's no more structure. I'm outside of the educational piece, you know, so it's like, oh, great. So I wanted to go traveling, and I needed to get some money together before that. And it so happened that I was going out with someone who was Irish from Dublin. So I came over to Dublin. And yes, and it was funny, you know, because yeah, before, I didn't realize, but this is kind of where the doors kind of led me. So I had my own kind of health problems, thyroid related, but also, you know, because of having been on a contraceptive pill for a long time and all that kind of stuff. And when I went to the medical profession, the response was, just get back on the contraceptive pill, you know? And I was like, well, that's what I'm trying to get off. You help me? They're like, no. I was like, okay, this is great. And so this was, you know, this was before the age of Facebook and Google and all this kind of stuff. So I was on the very bare internet looking for alternative stuff. And I came across kinesiology. And I went to see one kinesiologist, and I had absolutely no faith in, like, nothing made sense with her. So I'd completely written that off as like crap. And then it just happened that a friend of mine, we were talking about this, and she's like, oh my goodness, you have to go and see this woman. She's amazing. She's a kinesiologist. So I don't understand what you're talking about, but she doesn't do that. And so I ended up going to this kinesiologist, and everything made sense. She explained everything to me, helped me with nutrition. I started feeling better. And by the time I went traveling, so I was away traveling in Asia for a year and a half. And when I was away, I had a chance to kind of reflect on what I wanted to do and all this kind of stuff. And I just realized that I loved kinesiology. I'd never thought about working with people in that way or going into the alternative scene or anything like that. But I just thought, you know what, when I get back, I'm going to do the foundation course, and we'll just see. And that's kind of where it's gone from.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
like
just
the rest is
opened.
history.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just throughout, I guess it's just, for me, it's been about following the little crumbs, you know, the little signs, and developing my own trust again in the universe or God, and, you know, something bigger.
So maybe in case some people don't know what kinesiology is, can you explain briefly what it is?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's muscle testing. But it's muscle testing working with the whole person. So, you know, you consider all the different aspects, like the chemical, the structural, the emotional, the mental, spiritual, and you work with that using muscle testing as your tool to kind of find out what's going on. Okay,
so muscle testing is the medium through which you ask the body what it needs, basically.
Yeah.
And for people who've never experienced that, muscle testing is like you're applying pressure different on, let's say, on the arm, and depending on the response that you get, the feeling that you get pressing on the arm, you know if the body is reacting positively or negatively, something like that.
Something like that, yeah, because it's basically we have messages going from our brain through our spine out to our muscles, and so we're testing that reflex. Okay. Is that working? And if we then put in some stress, you know, you might think about something stressful. I might put in a food into your, you know, space that is stressful for your system. It's like you're not going to have enough energy to also respond with that reflex. And so I will have a different response in the muscle.
Okay. Yeah, that's because I've always been fascinated, you know, like going to you is well, like just putting a tiny, like a trace element of a chemical compound or a drug or a supplement just on the body, and just that gives you an information about whether the body likes this thing or not. So how do we explain why that works when we don't even need to ingest the thing, for instance, to have the answer? Maybe
I love your question. No, because this is it. It's like, because we are vibrational beings. We are not just like, imagine if you could have a different pair of glasses on, where you could actually see us not as material, but like physical materia, but actually vibration. You would see the different levels. So like the physical body is also vibration, but it's so slow that we actually, we can see it and we can touch it, we can feel it, right? But as we move out in our energy field, the vibration changes and we have different energy bodies. And so something can materialize, it can have like something that's materializing physically has probably already been materializing through the layers of your body.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And so for that reason, because we are energetic, like we're vibrational beings, everything is vibration. And that's also why, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit now, but this is also why we're not separate from anything. So if you think about, how can distant healing work, or in heart math, they do a lot of interesting experiments with people at great distance. But that works because we are vibrational, and all of that, like we're just living in a big field.
Yeah.
And we're sharing that field. So like to think that what I do isn't going to have an impact on you or anyone else is very limited thinking. It's very old-fashioned Newtonian thinking.
Yeah.
And it's not actually where science is at today at all. So getting back to your question there about how the body can pick it up, it's because it's working not just with the physical, but actually with all the different bodies and all the different vibrations.
Yeah. And tell me if I'm onto something here, but like the way I like to visualize it is the vibration. So it's like different waves that have different shapes and frequencies. So and so when we are in presence of something that has something beneficial, is the two waves collide and amplify each other. And then when it's not a good match, they collide, but they cancel each other.
Exactly.
Constructive interference, destructive interference. That's how I've, the closest that I can explain why things like, let's say, homeopathy would work, which has finding a lot of people that are very, very suspicious of it, because apparently in a world where we're all separate from each other, when we are not connected to everything, and when we would not be vibrational or energy being, where there is no awareness of that, of course things like kinesiology, homeopathy, or this type of things don't make any sense at all. I can totally understand how people could be suspicious. But when you start to see the world with its real structure is not the right word, but like you say, putting the glasses that allow us to see what's going on in what we don't usually see. So I love it, because for me, spirituality is like that, the invisible, the study of the invisible, the relationship with the invisible, which is
absolutely
which is we emerge from it, and it's a lot more vibrant. There is a lot going on.
Absolutely. And if we can understand, imagine if we can understand it. Imagine if we could understand the different ways that we work. And I mean, we're so intricate, we're so complex, and we're not just talking about, different bodies. We're talking about, ancestral time. We're talking about, like all of that, just to kind of like blow some people's brains up here. But imagine being able to understand, for example, where the different injuries or wounds are in our whole system. I love thinking about this. You can well, first of all, that there are sound pitches that we can't hear as people, that dogs hear. For example, you have the dog whistle, and that's, people get that. They're like, okay, yeah, that works. We also know that birds, for example, follow certain kind of spirals of heat and stuff like that we can't see, but they definitely know. Like, they're not just flying blindly, right? And so imagine if we could actually put on a pair of glasses where we could see the world in its fullest expression, so to speak, like that, And also like look at ourselves and kind of go like, oh, okay, I see there's a wound there, and that goes back to whatever. And, you know, without having to have all the information, but just understanding how that affects us in our daily life, or in how we want to manifest something, or grow our business, or have a career, or have a healthy family and life and all that kind of stuff. And being able to work with it on the right levels, and not just looking to shush it down with some pills or drugs or whatever, you know?
Yeah, because it's funny because everyone understands, no one has a problem with Wi-Fi and the phone network and you know, like tuning in the radio and then suddenly when it comes to us and our health, then suddenly like why would that not work in the same way? Or like why would people have problems? Or well, some people are skeptical of distant healing, of that you know, that type of thing. So it makes total sense to me that let's say when our Zoom broke, you know, had a connection issue earlier. So the result of the break of connection is the image freezes and we can't communicate for a moment. So that's the symptom. But then the cause is somewhere that we don't see, where there's obviously a breach of in the waves or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not an, you know, electrical engineer. So it's the same for the body. So I love how you're describing it. So, and it could be explaining when you're talking about wounds, but it's not necessarily injuries or a wound in the body. It could also be an emotional wound. Or
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you say that, you know, how you compare it with the Zoom thing, because like we would never go and try and like sort out the computer screen to get, you know, the face moving.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're not shaking the screen to get the image to come back, right? You know that's just like you just got to be patient. Worst case, just shut it down and turn it back on. You know,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is in a weird way, it's like the ultimate solution for us too. Shut it down and turn it back on in the next life. I'm just going a bit too far here.
Well, actually, no, but I was going to say not that far. I wasn't going to go that far, but sleep actually does reset us.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, when everything else fails, like it is a good idea to just shut down, go to sleep, and allow yourself to reset. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, love that. Makes me makes me realize how how poor mine is at the moment. So yeah, true. But like we know, and I mean, everyone has been feeling it. It's like when you have the lack of sleep, the mood that we're in the next day. So there is a direct correlation. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you have some examples, maybe some cool examples of, you know, that are coming to you? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, of maybe someone, even or yourself, you know, having something that seemingly is like the symptom is one thing, and but then once you investigate it through the energy work, the root cause ended up something totally mind-blowing. Or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's mind-blowing, but I mean, it happens all the time. It happens all the time in terms of, you know, especially people coming in maybe with lower back pain.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, you can trace back to possibly something chemical, possibly something, you know, in the endocrine system or kidneys, adrenals, blah, blah, blah. But eventually there will be something that is emotional, and there will be, you know, there will be healing that gets to come in for that as well. Yeah. Yeah, there's I can't think of like any particular but one story that pops into my head, and I don't know why, but I'll just share it here. Was a woman, this was a long time ago. She had very bad fibromyalgia, and she was coming to me, and she, she was not into angels or energy or anything like that. Anyway, the way I work, there was a lot of what showed up was a lot of kind of like patching up her aura. I know that sounds weird, but just like working energetically with the different layers of her aura. And I explained this to her in a gentle way to see, could it be maybe, because I couldn't just like not say anything about it. Anyway, it turns out then she opens up and she says that this all started when she was on her bike and she heard a voice very clearly in her head saying, turn left. And she didn't listen. And she continued straight and she got hit by a car. And this is when all the fibromyalgia, this is when all the stuff started. And she was still like, we worked a bit with that, just that break of, because she couldn't reconcile the fact that she'd actually heard something that could have saved her had she listened. There's a lot of kind of like blaming herself, but also not being able to kind of like let it in because she didn't believe in angels and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So beyond the apparent, maybe damage that the car accident would have made, the long lasting damage was this impossible reconciliation, like you said, with something that she's not supposed to believe in. So resisting something coming into her life. Well, that's really that makes sense, because creates like a friction in our emotionally.
Absolutely.
So that's how so the way, as you were talking about describing, things happening before it happens in the body, it happens in the layers. So I could imagine like, nice waves, how we are radiating energy. So it should be like, nice regular waves of different frequency that maybe some of them gets cut off where it shouldn't, or then they start to zigzag in a funny way, and that's not how they're supposed to roll, and this type of things.
I love your description. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's when you said patching the aura, it's like nearly like, okay, if you were like a surgeon who would see the waves and kind of draw them back, it's like, oh, this one is not working well. Let's have them.
Let's stitch them back. Yeah, and it's not so much about me stitching anything or anything like that. It was more kind of like offering her a way to kind of meet this within her. Because another thing, in my belief is that, life is always working for us. It might not be pleasant. It might not be, what we want it to look like. But I believe that, we're here to experience things. And the less resistance we can have towards our experiences, no matter what they are, the quicker and the less painful our development and expansion will be.
So then it's more like holding a space, bringing opening a door, bringing a perspective, so that there is somehow a relaxation that allows the waves to repair themselves rather
exactly. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Because in, like, I guess so that's why we get to be aware of the emotions that we are feeling on a day-to-day basis. Is like being angry all the time. It's not just pissing off the people around you. It's also
absolutely. And like being angry, so anger is I love this example as well, because being anger is a very like it's not a bad feeling, but often a lot of people in our society, we don't know how to be with anger. So there's a lot of resistance towards it, and we don't know how to express it, or when we express it, we're not met in a good way. So then we try to hold it back. And whereas, if we were able to be with the emotion, with the feeling of anger through our body, and breathe with that, like become conscious of where is the restriction, and being able to breathe with that, we actually create a pathway for the energy to flow, and anger can then actually act as, something really strengthening, something empowering, something where we hold our boundaries, something where we hold our space, so
what you're saying is like emotions have no intrinsic good or bad, is how we are processing them ourselves that will or will not have a negative impact on our body.
Yeah. And if we can, and emotions are energy in motion. So if we have stuck emotions, we have stuck energy.
Okay.
So if we can feel it in our, like, it's a very physical thing, if you can feel it in your body, anywhere in your body, and then focus your breath through that particular part, or it might be that you're feeling numb even. So it's like a non-feeling, but you're aware of this non-feeling. And if we're able to be with that, and that can be difficult on your own sometimes if it's big emotions, so it's good to kind of have support in it. And then, as you learn, you'll find where it is in your body, and you can breathe through it, and it will actually open up the pathways in your system to let it flow through.
So it's funny, as you're talking now, I'm having a mental image of, a tiny, like a little worm, a wave that would be like that is just passing by, and like whatever, whichever it could be, like a anger or something else, and it happens to kind of meet your body, and so it's kind of like starting to travel through it. And so that's the crucial moment. It's like, are we holding on to it? Yes. And so it gets stuck, and it kind of start to mess around inside, or else we, like you say, we just relax into it. We allow ourselves to feel it, and as we are being in that receptivity and allowance, then it can keep going, and then eventually goes travel through instead of staying in and wreaking havoc.
Yes, and the more we do that, the more little energy worms we have going through, the bigger our channels become for the light and energy to flow through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that starts to make sense. The way we say we can't selectively numb, so we can't, hoping, like repressing what we perceive as negative emotions, and expect to feel all of the pleasant ones.
Yes.
So that would make a lot of sense then. So if we are closed down, if we're closing ourselves to some, we're closing ourselves to all of them. Yeah,
great. Love it.
Oh yeah, so like exercising our ability to process the unpleasant ones also leaves us with bigger pathways to experience more of the pleasant ones.
And you'd be surprised, like a lot of people aren't really able to be with their pleasant feelings either, because maybe it wasn't safe to be joyful. So
that's an interesting such a complex and rich topic, because like we're only on top of it, we're only looking at the emotions right now, but with the emotions are coming thoughts,
Yes,
And
we
so
have our
like,
beliefs and programs and everything behind that. Yes.
yeah, so if it was like you know, because for a moment I'm like, oh yeah, well, that looks easy. You know, I'm just gonna kind of breathe it in and out, feel it. But that's without all of the mental chatter that's gonna come, you know, layering itself on top of it and make a nice little sabotage.
Distraction.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying, you know, it's like it sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but it can be really difficult,
Mhm.
especially with big emotions,
Yeah.
you know, like anger and rage. But even as I said, you know, with joy, you might
Yeah.
have been super unsafe to feel joy or to express joy. And so to have a little bit and actually feel it in your body and allow that little worm to make its way through and make some space for it. We might need someone there to kind of almost like, you know, in acrobatics, like to spot you, to
Yeah.
to
Oh yeah.
to allow you to kind of, you know, still be present with it.
Yeah. Yes, I know that we can, maybe for people, maybe for the first time in their life, feel this emotion in a safe way.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any punishment on the, you know, on the other side of it, or
Yeah.
judgment or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love it because it's like we are investigating like all of these invisible things going around through the or close enough surrounding or field.
Yeah.
But it works as well in the grand scheme of things, like our relationship with bigger events.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's like, you know, imagine if you're very closed down within your body, your energetic body, and then you're wanting to lean into spirituality, you're wanting to lean into trusting and having faith in something bigger, bigger that's even more invisible
Yeah.
than, you know, what you can feel and sense. And, you know, that becomes really tricky, you know, and for some people, it's the thing that's going to, you know, it's a two-way street, right? It might be the thing that's actually going to pull you through and be able to be with whatever is going on. And also some people might have to start with being with in order to reach out and trust something, something beyond themselves.
Yeah. And because trusting something beyond ourselves, I love how you're saying it, because I was going to something very specific with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that trust, you know, when we are into uncertain phases in our life, because I know you have a beautiful example of it when you were moving to, if I remember well, to Canada, you know, how you just leaned into like that faith in what was to be, and that happened. So would you mind telling us that story, because I think it's so inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so funny, you know, because I was only in my early 20s, so I was nowhere near knowing anything about, you know, anything. I was doing I finished my second year in university, and I just knew I couldn't stay in London one more year. I had to get out. It was like suffocating me. So I was like, okay, I got to do a work placement year. And I had a chance of doing that abroad somewhere. And so I did a lot of visualization without knowing it. You know, so I was visualizing myself over in in California. Um, Funny enough, I ended up in Toronto. So I got the East Coast instead of the West Coast, and I got, you know, Canada instead of the US, but it was like it's the same continent. Um, and yeah, I just had my goal set. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that anything else could happen. Like failure was not an option, as in like not going anywhere was not an option. And yeah, I'm amazed myself now looking back at it, how determined and how focused I was on my goal. And I wasn't attached to what it looked like. I mean, I wasn't crying because I didn't get to California. I was delighted with going to Toronto, you know. And there were obstacles the whole way. I didn't get my, I didn't know who I was going to go stay with, like I didn't know which professor was going to take me in. That only came, I don't know, a few weeks before I needed to go. I went in to buy my ticket, and I came in on the last day that they had a special sale for students. I got a really good deal, open-ended tickets that would last me for a year, with Virgin Atlantic. Great. There was loads of problems getting my visa through. So I managed to get and again, it was just like, as all this was going on, I just kept focused on doing my things. I was working 6 days a week at that stage to kind of earn some money together. And I wasn't entertaining anything else. I got a 6-month visa come through. And when I got over there, I got pulled into customs, and then this man was interrogating me for a long time. And then he just said, okay, listen, I'm just going to give you a 12-month visa here on the spot. So I didn't have to go worrying about not being able to stay for the full year. I also ended up arriving in Canada, I think it was 1 day or 2 days before September 11th. So had I come later, I probably would not have been so welcomed in, with a 12-month visa and everything. So it was just, and from that to having somewhere to land, another Swedish family who opened their doors to me, to finding somewhere to live with some other students. And yeah, it was just, and I was not doing any meditation. I was not doing any sort of spiritual work. But there was something within me that just knew that this is what I'm doing. And I just followed that.
So knowing everything that you know now, if you were to put words on what magic was working at that time, what could it be?
Well, I think the magic was just pure stubbornness in terms of no, this is what I'm doing.
Okay. Having a vision and sticking to it.
Absolutely sticking with it. Yeah. And not being attached to what it really looked like, but just, I was more I knew I wanted to spend a year abroad, and I wanted to, learn some fascinating stuff around cross-cultural psychology. That was it. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the magic in just sticking with it and not starting to read the signs on the outside. Because I could have well been oh, maybe I shouldn't go because it's, it doesn't look like I'm supposed to be going.
Oh, okay. When we say not reading the science as in you're saying that as a figure of speech, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Reading the signs as in because I was having trouble getting my visa through and all this kind of stuff, it's not kind of going oh, maybe that means I'm not meant to be going. I probably should be staying here.
Oh, yes. So, that's a juicy one. Yes, not interpreting every tiny thing as so actually that opens up another question. And I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. I'm just wondering, because sometimes we are going through life and when we are a bit kind of holistic, spiritual, whatever, and I hear it a lot, and sometimes I've been acting on that as well. You're starting on the trajectory that you want to do something, and then like you say, something happens, and then it's oh, but maybe that's a sign. So taking, okay, that's a sign that maybe I should do something else, or I should not do this or that. But your story is The opposite is like having a vision, sticking to it, and not taking the obstacles as signs to deviate.
Yes, exactly. And I
So
guess, sticking with my feeling inside of just like, this is what I'm doing.
yeah, because sometimes I wonder, is it that sometimes we're having that perception that the universe or the external world is telling us things or giving us signs, but that's ignoring our power. As in, I believe that the universe doesn't randomly throw things at us, but it responds to us. So when we're seeing something that, again, looks like random because we don't see the invisible ramifications of it, we think that, oh, maybe something external is telling me to deviate or do something different. But when we see ourselves as being that powerful broadcaster into the field, and the universe responds to our input, then suddenly we can have a different maybe interpretation of it. And like you did when you were younger, it's like, okay, so I'm not broadcasting loud enough, so let me be louder instead of being swayed. And what it evokes to me as well is when we are trying to manifest something, we are obviously wanting to be in a different state or space that we are in now. So vibrationally, the future us is going to be different than the present us. So between the now and later, there's a difference. So while we are bridging the difference, that gap, there's bound to be some little adjustments where it might look like we are making progress, but it's not quite there. So some disturbances. So maybe the message is like not to let ourselves be disturbed by the inaccuracies on the way to what we really want.
Absolutely. And actually, it reminds me that I remember I used to go to bed and like completely, I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
But I used to go to bed and go like, imagine, I wonder what my room would look like, And it was actually only when I was, living there for quite a while, and I realized I was lying in my bed and I was like, oh yeah, it kind of looks a little bit like I imagine. But yeah, really being connected to the feeling of what you want. And I mean, it was so unwavering. There was no doubt in my mind, so it wasn't something that I was fighting for or anything like that. And I just, I fully trusted. I was like, oh, this is happening. There's no other option.
There's no other option. Yeah.
But not in like, oh my goodness, there's no other option. It was just like, there just isn't any other option.
So was there a knowing somehow?
Yeah, it was more than a knowing. It was just like a deep trust that things will work out.
Okay, so I'm gonna be
and actually, I'm gonna say something on that, because I think that's a theme that runs through my life. I lean back into that feeling of like, well, whatever things look like now, I know that things are going to be okay. Because I had a pretty heartbreaking breakup a while back. Well, a good while back now, but from a long-term relationship, and in the midst of just like the kind of initial kind of like bomb going off, I reached out for my angel cards actually, and I pulled a card and I was like, okay, help me here. I was like devastated, and I get this freaking card where it says like, have a sense of humor, and it's like, really, really. But it helped me because I actually started laughing. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to take this so seriously. And it reminded me that, things are going to be okay. It's tough right now, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that trust. What would you say? What advice would you have for people listening who would want to have that trust? Let's say, you know, the whole series about, you know, career as well. So maybe like stuck in, you know, maybe uncomfortable career situations. And when you need to have that trust and you don't feel it or you don't have it yet, do you have any advice on where to go?
It's like the $1 million question, huh?
I mean, I know. Yeah, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot again. Maybe we
No,
do.
but I think it's something that, you know, we got to start living it. Got to start living it in the little things.
Okay.
So I think the trust needs to come from from us giving to ourselves what we really want.
Okay.
And trusting that that's okay. To also kind of like, you know, I wouldn't encourage people to kind of be reckless and quit their job when they don't have anything set up or whatever, you know, like mind yourself in the process as well. But I think it starts with that listening, like the willingness to listen to what we actually want, why we're actually here, and starting to see how we can follow that just in the little ways, in the little steps. And then yeah, like what helps me is just the understanding that life is always working for us.
Mm-hmm.
And my reason for being here is nothing else than to have experiences. So I get to choose what kind of experiences I want to have. Mm-hmm. Do I want to continue having experiences where I'm feeling frustrated and annoyed and stuck in work? Or do I want to change that and have some other experiences now? Mm-hmm. So yeah. that would be where I would start.
We can always make another choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, like if you're here to experience things.
Yeah. Yes. Even the unpleasant experience is
it's an experience. And it's like, okay, so we can get addicted to experiences.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, am I done with this now? I want to look for something else. Do I want some help in maybe trying another experience?
Yes, creating another experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Liz, before, because we are, you know, running towards in what way, like, you know, what way are you working with people now if people want to, you know, experience you?
So I'm working online. Yeah. I work with wholehearted health coaching. But as I said, well, as we mentioned before, it's not just about your physical health. It's about, you know, you feeling healthy and happy and whole in your life. So yeah, I work online with coaching sessions. And I do have a very exciting program that I'm running together with the original lady, actually the original woman that I told you about who introduced me to the whole energy piece, Janine Thorpe. And it's still in developmental kind of stages, but it's basically on learning how to manifest and how to create the life that we want by understanding our spiritual design and understanding how we can embody it as well. Because if we can't integrate it, then it's not going to manifest. It's not going to be sustainable in our life. So yes. So if you want to reach out to me, that's perfectly fine. I'm happy to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And see how I can support. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that everyone, like all of your information is out there for people to connect. And so my last question is actually, is there anything that I haven't asked or that we haven't talked about that you would like to address, that a message or anything that you want to leave or people with today?
No, I think my message is simply that if we remember that life always works for us,
Mhm.
and that we're here to have experiences, you know, and then we can actually choose the experiences we're having, where we are choosing the experiences we're having,
Yeah.
whether consciously or subconsciously. But kind of coming from that place, then things can look a little bit different in how we approach life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. More power to us.
Yeah.
Yes, that way. Yeah, thank you so much, Liz. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
so choosing our experiences. So I hope that everyone's going to choose to to listen to our conversation and to come back for another one next week. So
Yes.
one choice at a time. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone. Love you, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.